part of what happens too is they have a lot of other things in there other than healthcare. I mean, they took our student loan program away from the Bank of North Dakota, and they put that in the bill because the government, again, thinks they can make money off it, and they took it away from the Bank of North Dakota. That's going to have a negative impact. But so there's a lot of other things that are in the bill.
So it's not all health care?
No.
No, it never is.
No. So I mean, shouldn't that be kind of cut out a little bit, I would think?
Well, that's one of the problems. In North Dakota, we generally have one bill per issue. And so you have, when you do that, you end up with that specific issue. What happens out in Washington is they load the bills up with a lot of earmarks, a lot of different things, so they get 51% of the people in the House and Senate that have kind of something, a benefit in there, and so it passes. And that's one of the things that's driving up our deficit and driving up problems with our country.
What are your thoughts as far as the economy?
Well, I mean, the number one thing is we got to get small business working again. And to me, it's like there's this cloud hanging over the country. And the best analogy I can think of is like if you know a blizzard's coming, and we know a blizzard's coming in 2 or 3 days. What do? I mean, you don't start adding on to your house. I mean, you don't start doing those things. You hunker down, and that's what small business in America is doing now. Is they're concerned about the spending because that's increasing the debt, and that's going to cause taxes to go up. And they're concerned about the regulations. So small business is just hunkered down, waiting for the storm to hit, and they're not going to hire employees. They're not going to pass, or they're not going to expand their business until something happens. And that's where, again, I mean, from my opponent and I were dramatically different. But I think, again, their idea of if we increase the stimulus and spend more money, somehow that's a good thing to do. And 2 weeks ago they passed a $26 billion stimulus program that went to help, targeted for education. Well, North Dakota's got a balanced budget. That money didn't flow here. And yet some of that money was for our highways, $13 million, that was used for that. So I guess my point is we got to get our country back to work. You do that by having a government that people can trust and believe in.
Where is all this money coming from? Because we're broke.
We're making it.
China.
I know China, so
You mean
why
the stimulus?
Yeah.
But don't you think it?
They borrow it. They have to borrow it. So it's borrowed.
But we're paying the interest. I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
They just go in the basement and make them print more money.
They're just printing.
I know, but they have nothing to, back it.
Did you want to get some of this? Maybe you could call your congressman and you could probably, if you have any questions directly for Pomeroy, you
It
could.
doesn't do any good to call them because they'll just thank you for calling and that's about the extent of it.
Well,
I've been there, I've done that.
Here's a bigger problem. I shouldn't say a bigger problem, but here's a problem with debt. Right now, about 42 cents of every dollar that's spent is borrowed. Okay? So when they're making decisions, that money's borrowed. And for me, one thing that I feel real strong about the North Dakota way is we want to leave things a little better for our children than we have. And what's happening in America right now is we're leaving our children in a lot of debt. A lot of debt. And that's not the way we do things. Someone used the analogy that in years ago, you had the farm, and you tried to pay off the debt in the farm, and give the farm to your children, or one of your kids that was going to farm. And that analogy today is people, government, they're selling the farm, taking the money, but giving their children the debt, so they have to keep paying. What's happened is every month, the United States needs to go out and borrow money on the international market, and one of the people that holds a lot of our debt, or countries, is China. And here, a few months ago, what happened, we went to sell a debt or to get money, China dumped a bunch of U.S. debt on the market at the same time. That's our problem long term. If we're not financially solid, other countries can control our country just because they've got the money and they've been fiscally prudent, tighten their belt, and haven't spent what they brought in. So, yeah.
Another question, cap and trade, that's going to directly affect this area with coal mines, power plants. And it still is not being attacked on the grounds that this global warming is really not a controllable issue. I mean, global warming is the biggest farce that we've had put on us in decades. So what do we do to get that message out so people aren't saying, well, if I vote against cap and trade, then I'm voting